Today, we're going to try something a little bit different. If you've been watching our channel and our shorts, you know that we've been sort of exploring other types of coffee aside from just espresso. So we got this beautiful Baratza Encore grinder so that we can make sort of larger batches of coffee. And I also picked up this beautiful Chemex coffee maker, which although it looks incredibly modern and cool, it was actually designed by a German engineer or a scientist named Peter. I'm going to just consult my notes because I don't speak German. Peter Schlumbaum in 1941. And this is really cool. It's actually housed in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art. So I figured this would be a great way, you know, a cool way to make coffee based on a nice old design. So today, what we're going to do is, a friend of ours, Monica, sent over this beautiful gift assortment of coffees from the Happy Goat Coffee Company in Ottawa. And I thought today would be a great day to just try brewing batches of each one of these and do a comparative tasting and see what the varieties taste like. We haven't really tried, we've been sort of focused on developing our espresso game and, you know, refining our espresso grind and dosages and all that. But this is an opportunity to sort of side-by-side comparison 4 distinctly different coffees and see how they taste made with this Chemex basically drip through or pour over coffee maker. So today's features are, I'm going to start at this end. This is a Brazilian Peaberry. Now, Peaberry coffees have teeny tiny little berries. So the coffee berries are nice and small. And actually, we've been drinking a Peaberry recently. This is from Vereda. And the description, and what I like about this, the Happy Goat Coffee Company, is they write really neat descriptions. It says, dark chocolate, nutty, slightly fruity, smooth, and sweet. It's a natural process at an altitude of 11 to 1250, and this one is dark roasted. So this should be pretty tasty and rich. By the way, just as an aside, the name of the company is the Happy Goat, and it's based on sort of the origin discovery story for coffee, that a goat herd in Ethiopia noticed that his goats were happily eating the berries of a local bush and bounding about and frolicking very happily. So he joined them, and he was later observed frolicking happily with the goats, and thus coffee was discovered. So here we are with the Happy Goat Coffee Company. So this is the Brazil Peaberry. The next one is a Guatemala La Moyuta, which is described as chocolate, citric acid, soft, smooth and creamy body. It's fully washed at an altitude of 13 to 1700, and this is a medium roast. So we'll see how this, I'm really curious to side-by-side taste all of these, because I've never really done this. I've never done, it's not quite a cupping, but it's a comparison, let's call it. This is an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe from Cochere. Floral, spicy, citrus, dark berries, fine acidity. It's fully washed from 1800 to 2000 meters. I love all this information. And it's a light roast. I have no idea what most of that stuff really means, but let's see if we can sort of discern the flavors.
Well, also excuse our pronunciations if we're getting anything wrong.
Yeah, please allow us. And this is an Ethiopian espresso. So they've roasted this to an espresso roast, which is between a medium and a dark. And it's described as spicy, nutty, lemon, fully washed from 1800 to 1900 meters in altitude. Now, we're not going to make an espresso with this today, but I will definitely try it later. Today we're going to make everything with the Chemex, and I've been playing around with the Chemex sort of recipe formula, and I'll do another video once I've gone a little further down the road with that. I'll post another video on where we've arrived in terms of grinding and dosages and stuff, but I'm pretty happy with where we are right now. So right now I've been playing around at approximately 64 grams per liter. So 64 grams of coffee in, and then 1,000 grams or a liter of coffee pouring through. Now that's a ratio, right, which I can then play with, because I don't want to make a liter of each of these coffees today, because we would both be buzzing and that would be wasteful. So
We'd never sleep.
yeah. Well, that would not apply to me. But, so what I thought I'd do is a quarter of that. And that's what I like about grams per liter formulas for making coffees. Now, I know you're supposed to maybe adjust them a little bit for lighter dosage, and I haven't gotten that far down the road yet. But basically what I'm going to do is do 16 grams, so a quarter of a liter. 250 grams of coffee. So 16 grams of ground coffee to 250 grams of liquid poured through the Chemex should give us around 250 grams of finished coffee. And so I'm going to grind them all, and then we'll make them up and toss them into thermoses so they don't get too cold. And then the two of us will sit down and compare them side by side and see what they all taste like. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, why not? Okay, so move these out of the way and you can see what I'm going to do. Oh, I don't know what I started with them in, but I'm going to label the things so we don't get confused. So, with this grinder, everybody seems to recommend you just use the lid for dosing, which is nice.
Do you want to move the goat out of the way?
There's the happy goat. There's the grinder. And we have some coffee close to the boil in the back here. Whoop. Okay, so let's pop this open. Oh, I like that.
Now, does it reseal?
It does. It has a resealable
Ziploc?
thing, and it has a vent here, so as the coffee is off-gassing CO2, it stays sealed in here, but it can. This is like a one-way valve that lets the CO2 out, but doesn't let oxygen in, so it doesn't age the coffee. So I'm just going to measure out 16 grams. And this is the Guatemalan La Moyuta. I have to remember that because I have to remember to label them correctly or put it in the right urn. So that's that. And I'm grinding these to a setting of 16 on the Encore. It's a little finer than the sort of standard 20 setting, but I tend to prefer a slightly richer flavor. And the Chemex filters clean out a lot of the sort of oils and over-extracted flavors, remove a lot of the bitters. So I find I can go a little bit finer in the grind and get a little bit more richness. That's what I've been experimenting with. So this is where I've sort of arrived for now. It may change. So this can pop in here. Give it a little shake around, knock any beans down. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about the Encore is it does seem to have very, very little retention. Measuring beans in versus beans out, there's almost no retention. So I'm going to grab a filter. Place it in the Chemex according to the instructions. And then they recommend that you wet down the filter. Let that all pass through. And then pour it out, obviously, because we don't want this in there. And then coffee in. Tare out the weight, and then add 250 grams of water. First little pour lets it bloom. And people seem to recommend giving it a little bit of a stir. It smells good. 140, 150, 250 grams. And then that just floats through. Oh, yeah. So my measurement is over. So now I can measure out my next batch. Hey there, welcome back. Yes.
It's been a while since we've done this together.
I know, it's true.
How are you? Well, do you want to give them an update? I mean, you're tasting coffee today.
I'm tasting coffee, I'm feeling great. My throat is feeling much, much better. So eating and drinking is good. My leg's getting better. I feel like a human being again, which is much of a relief.
You couldn't really drink coffee for a month and a half post-surgery.
Yeah, it was very painful.
We've been waiting to do this for when Rob got better. And I'm excited because we have a variety.
Yeah. So I've arranged these from light. So we have the Ethiopian, which is a light roast.
Yep.
Then we have the Guatemalan, which is a medium roast.
Yep.
Then we have the Ethiopian Espresso, which is an espresso roast, which is in between. And then we have the Brazilian, which is a dark roast. And I'm assuming, given the Happy Goats reputation, now they have a great reputation as being, number one, completely equitable purchasers. So they purchase from small growers who are raising their beans in responsible ways. And apparently they're really great roasters. So I'm assuming that for each one of these, they have selected a roast that's appropriate to the bean.
Okay.
So we get to have the benefit of their expertise.
We like
and
that.
we'll be happy goats in a minute. So shall we start with the lightest?
Which one's the lightest again?
We're going to start over here.
Okay, let me just move these out of the way so people can see what the color of the pour looks like. Quick rearranging.
There we go.
All right.
So
should we smell it first?
I'm going to put it in the cup and then we'll smell it so we don't get the metal. So this is Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. Every time I'm going to say it slightly different. That way, one of these times I'll get it right.
One of the iterations.
This is floral, spicy, citrus, dark berries, and fine acidity. It's a fully washed 1,800 meter bean. Go for it.
It actually smells like I've put cream and sugar in here.
Ooh.
It smells sweet.
This is so amazing because prior to our getting the Cafe Lat robot, Nadia almost never ever drank coffee.
Why? I come from a land of chai drinkers, tea drinkers, but it's really good. It tastes like if I had put a little bit, I normally put a bit of milk and less than a quarter teaspoon of sugar in my coffee. I just like that taste. To other people, they may find it really gross because they want to drink it black, but this coffee, black on its own, tastes like I've added a bit of milk and sugar.
It's very, very smooth. There's no harshness or bitterness at all. Part of that definitely has to do with the Chemex filters, which are formulated to not allow the harsher elements of the coffee through, which seems to really work.
I'm curious to know if you made an espresso out of this, because it says citrus and fine acidity, and I'm not getting either one. It's actually very smooth, slightly sweet, and it's a bit of a molasses mouthfeel.
There's definitely a sweetness to it.
Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying that one. We're keeping this all right.
We're keeping them all. So that's the Ethiopian.
Let me move that out of the way.
Our next, in terms of darkness, this one is the Guatemala La Moyuta, which is a medium roast, and it has flavors of chocolate, citric acid, soft, smooth, and creamy body. It's been fully washed. That's part of the processing of how, between harvesting the pods and making them into coffee beans, these get fully washed. And this is from a 1,300 meter altitude, so a lower altitude. And I'm not knowledgeable enough to contribute to what exactly that does, but we'll taste and we'll see.
It's interesting that they say citric acid as opposed to citrus for one of the flavor notes. I wonder why citric acid versus citrus.
I guess citrus is more of the fruit. Citric acid
More
is the
floral
sharpness.
citrus, yeah. It's about the same color as the previous coffee.
Let it cool just a little bit so you don't burn your tongue.
Good idea. I could already tell from the smell it's a very different smell.
Yeah, the smell is much richer. You can sense the darker roast right off the bat, even though it's just from light to medium.
I'm getting more of that roasty smell as opposed to the first one where it had more of a sweet smell to it.
It's certainly, there's no sense of bitter at all, but there's a richness to it.
And a slight nuttiness.
Yeah. And I've always, prior to recently, I almost always drank darker roasts. So this feels very much what I'm used to.
I can understand the smooth and creamy body, which is listed as one of the attributes.
It has a very rich sort of a mouthfeel on the tongue.
How do you like this in comparison to the first one?
I like the slightly darker roast. I like that sort of richness to it. It's not too dark. There's no burnt element whatsoever.
There's no burnt.
And
There's no acidity in this one.
Yeah, some of the cafes I find tend to over roast their coffees, and you get this really harsh bitterness from that. But this is very smooth and delicious.
I can still drink this as a plain black coffee. It's not so harsh.
There is a little bit of sweetness that's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yum.
So far, so good.
So far, delicious.
I'm curious about the dark ones now, because I think the dark ones will start to go in the more bitter realm.
We shall see. At some point, we may have to do like a vertical cupping where we have one bean, like one particular bean roasted at like 4 different levels, and see what the roast itself is like.
Wait, would we be roasting?
No. I think we would go visit a roaster.
I got a slight alarm on my face.
We are not going that far down the rabbit hole, people. This is our Ethiopian espresso, which is it says Guji. I don't know if that's
G-U-J-I.
G-U-J-I. I don't know if that's a bean or a
Would it be
region.
Guji? No, if it's Ethiopian, there would be.
This is Ethiopian.
It would not be a he sound.
Yeah, I think it would be Guji, which is spicy, nutty, and lemon. Again, fully washed, and this is 18 to 1900 meters, so a little more altitude.
I love how each package has some sort of a citrus indication on it. We have had citrus, citric acid, and now we have lemon, which obviously is a very distinct taste. But
right. Yeah, I like that they've given really nice descriptions. So here we are. Let's try this. These are supposed to be pouring spouts, so maybe I'll be less messy.
It's dark.
Give it a swirl so it's not too hot.
I'm not doing an enthusiastic swirl because it's almost to the top.
And we're not going to force you to listen to us slurping off a spoon.
I feel like, knowing my luck, if you've been watching the other cooking videos, I would either choke or have it dribble down my chin. It's actually quite pleasant for a dark roast. I didn't think I would actually like it. I figured it'd be more burnt in taste.
definitely more, and now I'm starting to identify what people refer to as roastiness in the flavor.
Yeah, you could also get it in the smell. The smell is also very different. It is more roasted. Almost like a campfire roasting.
There's a little bit of sort of a smokiness to it.
And yes, and I understand the lemon. It's not citrus, but you know how lemon has a bit of a taste to it?
You know, it's funny because it's not what I would identify as lemon juice.
Yeah.
It's almost like lemon zest.
Yes.
There's that slightly, like lemon zest has a slightly bitter element to it. That's what I'm getting here.
Not overly acidic, but it's distinctly a lemon taste. It's, for me, I'm getting it near the end when you just let the coffee linger a bit.
Again, they're all very, very smooth.
Yeah.
There's nothing unwelcome in any of these tastes.
I thought it'd be really more of a burnt taste, and it's not.
No,
I can also have this coffee black. If anything, this is more pleasant as a black coffee than the Moyuta one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a darker roast than the medium.
But it's just such a different flavor profile. It's actually more subtle. I figured it'd be more of a punch in the face, but
I think it really comes down to the experience of the roaster and knowing which roasts suit which beans from what altitude and all of this stuff.
yeah, I could enjoy this in the morning.
Absolutely. That's a great morning coffee.
Yeah, because in the mornings I like my drink a little on the not savory, but not sweet. I'm not a sweet person in the morning, so this is actually a perfect drink to have.
Absolutely.
Wow, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Well, I guess let the pros do what they do best.
Yeah.
Which is roast coffee.
I was ready to dislike it, I'm going to admit.
So, this is our darkest roast. This is a Brazilian Peaberry from Vereda in Bahia. I suppose we could look up the locations of all of these. Now, this one has a description of dark chocolate, nutty, slightly fruity, smooth and sweet. Natural process from 1,100 to 1,250 meters high. So lower altitude, natural process, and a dark roast.
I like their attribute
Absolutely.
naming process.
And what's nice is in the corner of each label it says directly sourced, which means that this roaster is buying directly from the growers.
Yeah.
So the money chain is as short as possible.
And it's to the benefit of the roaster.
Exactly. To the benefit of the roaster and the grower.
And the grower.
And this pourer doesn't want to pour.
Maybe we have a malfunction.
There we go.
There we go. Oh, it's really dark.
That's
in color.
definitely the darkest of the coffees we've tried.
It's not as red and orange in color.
Give that a try.
Yep, that's a dark roast. For me, it's actually not that bad. I'm not a big dark roast person. I would still have this as a black coffee if this was not available. It was like, this is my second option, but I don't dislike it. I'm starting to now get more of the bitter notes, but not.
Yeah, there is a hint of bitter in there, which I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
But I guess that's probably what my palate is used to after years of drinking.
I mean, you do tend to like a little bit bitter in food as well.
This is true. I tend to like really dark chocolates and bitter flavors in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
It's still good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Still very rich.
I would say it is smooth. I wouldn't say it's really sweet, but I guess.
I'm not getting sweet out of it.
But I'm wondering again, if we made an espresso out of it, would that
Very possibly,
change
yeah.
through the Cafe Lot robot?
It is delicious. I do like it a lot. It's definitely a good step darker
Yes.
than the previous ones. So there is that sort of roasty dark note, and now I'm starting to understand what people say about the darker you roast, the less flavor of the berry,
Yes.
and the more the flavor of the roast.
Yes.
Like the lightest roast that we tasted first felt very.
You know, it had a slight fruitiness to it. It had a sweetness to it. It had a creamy, for me, it was like a molasses almost.
Here, let's compare. This is the Ethiopian light roast, which is the lightest one that we have.
Yeah, it's like a world apart, and it's actually a little more citrusy now because I just had the dark roast coffee. But it's very different.
Yes, and it's also cooled a little bit.
I think that's what's bringing out the citrusy.
I think we can bring out the citrus flavors, and it, you can sort of taste it's like tasting more of the berry of the coffee, which means you're getting more of the characteristic of the coffee.
Yeah, it's turned a little more caramel in terms of mouthfeel.
But I'm not sure that I would necessarily drink this all the time, because by comparison, I love the richness of the darker roast.
I don't know. It's not,
that one's a little past.
No, this one for me, for like an everyday type of drink would be the Ethiopian. Would be the Ethiopian Guji. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing this. Yeah, because even as it's cooling down, it's actually getting a little chocolatey and it's a little more citrusy. We haven't had lunch yet. Or breakfast. It's just been coffee.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I prefer this one is so good.
That hits the roast profile that you really like.
That's really good. The lightest roast, I would like it like on post meal. You want to just kind of enjoy a nice cup of coffee.
Are you getting a certain perfume quality to it?
I am. It's chamomile.
Almost.
I'm getting the fragrance of chamomile in it.
Spicy, nutty lemon.
And I know they didn't brew it with any, or roast it with any chamomile, but I'm getting that fragrant note of chamomile. The more it's been going into room temperature, or cooling down to room temperature.
Wow, this is very, very interesting.
Yeah, this was good. We've never done this before.
I think I'm still, personally, I'm favoring the sort of medium to slightly darker roasts for the pour-overs.
Is this the I guess this would be medium to dark?
That's between a medium and a dark. It's an espresso.
Yeah.
Definitely using the espresso machine, I've certainly tasted some lighter roasts that I really like, as well as the dark roasts.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the espresso process brings out a lot more density of flavor. So I find now some of the darker roasts with the espresso are a little too much. So it's really interesting to see the range of flavors that's happening.
I'm so curious to try the really light one through the Coffee Lot robot. Because in the mornings when I wake up, I just make a shot of espresso. Basically make it into an Americano and add a bit of milk and sugar into it, and that's my coffee in the morning.
You may not be adding sugar anymore.
I may not be. I might not even add milk for that one. But again, the flavor might be different coming out of the Coffee Lot robot.
It's true.
Because it's coming out as an espresso, which I guess would be more concentrated. Rob knows more about this than I do. I'm only guessing here, but I feel like that would be the case, which means it may actually push out more citrusy notes.
And I'm thinking, because I usually have 2 espressos, and I make an espresso, I drink it, then I make another one and drink that in the mornings. And now I'm sort of thinking, do I start on a slightly lighter roast and then progress to a slightly darker roast for the morning coffees?
I mean, why not?
Why
we have
not?
it.
We have them.
I mean, I know not everybody has all these varieties of coffee. We were gifted with these, which we really appreciate. Thank you very much.
Monica.
But since we have it, I think you can make your own coffee meal. It's like a 3-course meal out of what you're having, because I would love to have the light roast as like a post meal. You know how I make chai after a really good meal?
I'm tasting the dark roast again. Oh, I could definitely drink a pot of that, no problem.
Whereas I would prefer this guy. Could easily have that.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? Neither of us have mentioned anything about this coffee.
Which one?
This is the
Guatemala?
Yeah, neither of us actually gravitated that much to it once we tasted everything.
This is the medium roast? Is it a medium?
It's a medium roast, yeah.
Yeah, it feels almost like it's not quite either one or the other.
Yeah, I just realized that we've been talking so much about the lightest roast and the 2 dark roasts, but we kind of forgot about this little guy.
What's its little flavor profile? Chocolate, citric acid, soft, smooth, and creamy. I still think it's not the light. Like, I'm not getting
a
lot of the sort of berry
It seems to be like
flavors.
This is Switzerland. It seems to be like a happy middle where it's not either or.
And I'm sure a lot of people would love the happy middle.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's not bad in any way. It's just once we got a chance to taste the others, they overshadow this, but this is still a delicious coffee that you could have either black or if you wanted to make it into something else.
Can't go too far wrong with these.
Oh, this would be great as a cappuccino or a macchiato.
There we go.
Yeah, I think that would be... It is now I'm tasting the actual particular attribute of a citric acid. It's more on the sharp side, but not unpleasant, as opposed to like a fruity citrus taste.
See what you're tasting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on our continuing coffee journey. And if you're enjoying, please subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications and like it, because we love getting likes. And please, any comments that you have on our pronunciations of the coffee.
Which we apologize again.
Which we apologize, but any comments you have or suggestions of what you'd like us to do or what you think we could do to improve our coffee game, let us know in the comments and we will respond.
Or if you'd like to see something like this with using the CoffeeLet robot, like different tastings, it would be a lot more labor work. But, you know, we could be happy to do something like this. And I think at some point we would like to try and go to a...
Oh, we'll definitely go out to a roaster.
Yeah.
So that will be a fun journey. So, hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll see you again.
Bye. We have coffee. I think we should finally eat now.
I think we should definitely eat.